Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's the class about davening. So davening is a mitzvah in the Torah to daven whenever we're in trouble, whenever you have a problem. It's supposed to daven to Hashem. But the specific tefillas, Shacharis, Mincha, Ma'ariv, that's rabbinic. That was enacted to commemorate the corresponding with the sacrifices that were brought in the Beis HaMikdash, the carbon that was brought in the morning, Tamid Shal Shacharis, the morning sacrifice, the afternoon sacrifice. That's we have Shacharis and Mincha. Then we have Ma'ariv, which corresponds to the leftover pieces that weren't burned from the sacrifices. So usually women are exempt from time-bound mitzvahs, but over here they're obligated because essentially davening is not time-bound, even though Shacharis and Mincha is time-bound, but essentially davening in itself is not a time-bound mitzvah. Therefore, women are obligated to daven Shacharis and Mincha, not obligated to daven Ma'ariv, because Ma'ariv is voluntary. Even for the men, it was voluntary. They accepted it upon themselves. So these days, it's obligatory for men to daven Ma'ariv, but that's because they accepted it upon themselves. So it became obligatory for men also to daven Ma'ariv. But for women aren't obligated to daven Ma'ariv. Women only have to daven Shacharis and Mincha. When we talk about the women davening Shacharis and Mincha, we're referring specifically to the Amidah, the Shemoneh Esrei. That's what we're referring to. Now, of course, the other parts of davening are also important, but when we talk about obligation, women are obligated to daven Shacharis and Mincha, we're referring to the Shemoneh Esrei, to the Amidah. We're not talking about the Shema. Shema, women don't have an obligation to say Shema because it's time-bound. Of course, women daven what they could, but in terms of obligation, it's the Amidah. Now, let's go back a little bit just because it's about davening. So let's start with the beginning of the day. Maidani. So, you get up in the morning and you say Maidani. The custom we say Maidani is, many Chabad is, that you sit up on your bed and you put your hands like this and you say Maidani, just like that. It doesn't have to be a complete sit-up. It could be a partial sit-up, meaning your legs could still be laying on the bed, but you're picking up your body. You have to be like sitting up like this. But that's our custom of saying Maidani. We follow what the Alter Rebbe brings in Shulchan Aruch, which he brings that according to Zohar, we are not supposed to touch before Negelvasa. We're not supposed to touch before Negelvasa food, drink, and clothing. We gis Negelvasa. We are not supposed to walk 6 feet before we gis Negelvasa. Then we get dressed, do everything we need to do, and then we gis Negelvasa again. That we gis properly by the sink. Some people even use a towel. Some do use a towel, but you want to make sure it's a proper gissing. You dry your hands, and then you say brachas. Now you should not speak between when you wash Negelvasa by the sink and you're about to say brachas. You shouldn't be speaking between that and Al Tilas Yadayim, because you don't want to interrupt between the washing and Al Tilas Yadayim. After Al Tilas Yadayim goes Ashiyotza. You also shouldn't interrupt there because really it's not a major issue to interrupt, but generally that's how it's accepted. We don't interrupt because you did go to the bathroom, now you need a Ashiyotza. Till now you couldn't say it because your hands weren't clean. Now you get Negelvasa, your hands are clean, but first comes Al Tilas Yadayim, then comes Ashiyotza, then comes between a Shayotza and a kind of Shom, you're not supposed to speak because they're connected to each other. So the kind of Shama does not begin with Baruch. You notice in the Shemoneh Esrei, in the Amidah, the first bracha begins with Baruch, and then afterwards there's no Baruch. Why? A bracha should start with Baruch. A regular bracha starts with Baruch. But because the first bracha is Baruch, the other ones are connected to it, so they're coming along. You don't need to start every bracha with Baruch. So the kind of Shama doesn't begin with Baruch, but it's following right after Baruch. So that's why you don't interrupt between. So from when you say Al Tilas Yadayim until you finish on that kind of Shama, hamachs and neshamas of God mesim, you don't speak. Afterwards, at this point, you could speak. I mean, you don't. What's the point? You shouldn't be speaking. You should say brachas, but halachically, you're allowed to speak if you want to speak. Then you say the rest of the brachas, and then comes Arena Makabel. Yeah.
How early could you say brachas? Like
as soon as you get up. As long as you wake up after midnight, you could say brachas. The only thing is, if it's before dawn, you will not say a bracha for the rooster. You know the rooster bracha, right? You don't say a bracha for that unless you have rooster crowing. So that you have to wait until dawn to say the bracha.
Dawn is like when it's starting to get light.
Dawn is these days is about dawn is when it starts, when there's a glimmer of light breaking through. These days, what is it, about 5? I have to check exactly. I can check later.
And after, let's say if I say it before dawn, I say everything except for the rooster bracha, I can go back and say just that one bracha.
You should. That's the proper thing. Right? No, that's proper. In other words, when you wake up after midnight, you can say all the brachas, and besides the rooster, then you leave for later. Yeah. Now, maybe later on I started going to order the brachas. I want to discuss what's more important in the davening. I guess we can do that. I guess we can do it now. So I'll bring out what's the most important parts of davening. Sharina Mekabel, after Achkamecha, and then you go to from Haidu until after the Amida. That's considered the most important part of davening. From Haidu till after the Amida. Now, if you want to also choose more from the Karbanis, you don't have time to say all the Karbanis. You want to say what's more from the Karbanis. What's most important? The Karban Talmid. Does that ring a bell? Yeah. And then you take that, Shachat Eis, and then you continue, including the Ketaitis, the incense, until before Tanur Rabbanan. So that, from the Karbanis, that's considered, these are psukim from the Torah, these are considered more important than the other ones. Then if there's more time, before that, there's the Trumas Hadeshin, right before Zois Torah Seila, Hiya Eila. It's hard without the, very good. Yeah. No, the main thing is that everyone knows here. I mean, I don't need for myself. I just need it. Right, show it to the, right, so basically you're saying this, and this, what I said before. If there's more time, there's going to be a time, so you could start with this. This is the Trumas Hadeshin. Every day the Kohen will take off some ash from the Mizbeach. He's also psukim. And then that's considered from the Kabbanis the most important part. And then afterwards, if there's more time, you would do the Akedah. Now, from the davening itself, I want to discuss, B'ez Hashem, one day will come that for good things, you won't have time to daven. And then what happens is, no time to daven. You don't daven because there's no time. But it's not or everything or nothing. So what's the main parts of davening? So I already narrowed it down. I'm going to narrow it down more. And that is, you say brachas. So in other words, let's say there's no time to daven. Just had a baby, mazel tov, and there's no time. You have no time. You're not get. But if someone tells me you have 15 minutes, 15 minutes you have. Okay, so you say brachas, and then you go to Baruch Shama. You say Adin Makabel after Achkamecha, yeah. You say Baruch Shama, just Baruch Shama. Then you say just Ashrei. Then you say Yishtabach. And from Yishtabach, you don't skip. Yishtabach, you say everything until after the Amida. It'll take like 15 minutes. So that's like the minimum part of davening. Person doesn't even have to, let's see, you don't even have that. Fine. So after Yishtabach, just say Shema. Don't say the brachas. In Shema, there's brachas before and after. And then say the Amida. So that's like the minimum amount of davening. Now, standing. So you know what to stand during davening, what to sit. Baruch Shama, you stand. Mizmor Seder, you stand, right? You know what to stand. Baruch Hashem, by Baruch David, you stand up. Before the Amida, Tilos, the Kedah and Gelim, the custom is to stand over there. By Shemoneh Esrei, of course, you're supposed to stand. But what I do want to explain is, what does it mean to stand? A lot of people don't know what it means. Standing doesn't just mean standing. It's not what it means in English. In English, standing means I'm standing. In English, I'm standing. Because I'm standing, but if I'm putting all my weight on the table, it's not called standing. So, for example, let's say in Shul, you're answering Kedusha. By Kedusha, you're supposed to stand. Sometimes you see people in Shul, by Kedusha, they get it for Kedusha. Now, Kedusha isn't, and they're leaning on the table. All the weight is on the table. They're putting so much weight on the table that if I was to pull away the table, they would fall. Which means that's not called standing, it's called sitting. Standing means that your pressure is on your feet. If just technically you're on your feet, but all your weight is on the table, that's not called standing. So whenever you're obligated to stand, the Amida, Kedusha, whatever that is, you have to make sure you're not putting all your weight on something else. You're not allowed to daven if there's a bad smell. Like a baby or whatever. Sometimes, besides, sometimes you're in places with this kerosene, there's a very bad scent of something. It's like, you're not allowed to daven there. It's a bad smell. You're not allowed to daven. So you can just say, I'll put a nose plug. I'm not going to smell it. It doesn't help. Because you are in a place that there's a bad smell, you can't daven in that place. The fact that you close your nose and you don't smell it doesn't help. Just like the loch, you're not allowed to daven in places that, if there's images that you're not allowed to look at, I'm talking about referring mainly to men, they're not allowed to daven in certain places where there's not these sticker pictures. They'll close their eyes. It doesn't help. Closing your eyes doesn't help. There is one opinion that says it helps. We don't rely on it only if there's like no other option. And even then, you try to turn your face the other direction. The same thing is, if it's a bad smell, you have to go away from that place and daven somewhere else. Now, there's a big misunderstanding in regards to women davening after midday, because women aren't obligated in time-bound mitzvahs. So people have the misconception that women could daven after midday. The time of davening shachar is up until midday, chatzos. Afterwards, you can't daven. People have the impression because women aren't obligated in time-bound mitzvahs. So when they daven, they don't have the concept of time-bound, so they can daven after midday. That's incorrect. Once come midday, you can't daven anymore. You're supposed to daven before midday. Now, in general, if someone misses a tefillah, let's say you miss mincha. You did it on mincha. Now it's night. You feel bad. You did it on mincha. What could you do to make up for mincha? Let's say. Anyone knows? You daven 2 Shemoneh Esrei for Ma'ariv. So let's say you don't usually daven Ma'ariv. Okay, but you didn't daven mincha. You want to make up for mincha. You have an opportunity to make up for mincha. You will daven Ma'ariv tonight. I'm saying if you want. I'm not saying you have to. You'll daven Ma'ariv tonight, and right after you finish the Shemoneh Esrei for Ma'ariv, you daven a second Shemoneh Esrei to make up for mincha. That's yes. You take 3 steps back, and not only that, it's brought down. You should say something. You should say a kapitel tilm in between. You should say something that should be like a break in between, like Ashrei or something. Something should be said in between. Now, let's go back to the beginning of davening. So in terms of kavanah, intentions, obviously you try as much as possible to understand what you're saying. Whenever you have time, you try to learn translations of the davening. But there's certain parts that are crucial to understand what you're saying. So in Ashrei, there's a pasuk, Paiseach es yodechu maspia l'chol chayrotzin, which means, Paiseach, open up, es yodechu, your hand, asking Hashem, open your hand, umaspia, and satiate l'chol chay, to every live person, notzin, his desire. Very important to have kavanah. Because if when you say these words, you're not thinking what you're saying, you have to go back. You remind yourself later, oh, I didn't have kavanah, you have to go back to B'Seichas Yadecha. So this is very important. No, you have to go back to the end and repeat everything again.
So you go back, you start at B'Seichas Yadecha, and then you continue on like Halos.
You continue on wherever you left off, as if as if that's what you're up to.
Then you say the Halalukas all over again?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So to start, yeah. He says you go back to the, yeah. Now, Birchas Knishma. So, in Birchas Knishma, if you have a siddur, there's something very interesting, and it's B'nai Shulchan that you have to have kavanah about certain things. You're supposed to remind yourself about certain episodes that happened throughout Jewish history, crucial episodes, at a certain part in the davening, which is right before Shema. So those who have a siddur, anyone needs a siddur? If you want to use the siddur, you can use it. You want to use a siddur? One of you want to use a siddur? You want to use a siddur? Yeah. So it's right before Shema. So right before Shema, it starts the words Kikel Per Yeshua Sata. You see those words? Kikel Per Yeshua Sata. Uvanu V'charta. You see the words Uvanu V'charta? Kikel. You have it? You have those words?
Yeah.
It says Uvanu V'charta.
Yeah.
What does it mean Uvanu V'charta? And in us you have chosen. Mikolam V'loshem, from every nation and language. So you're supposed to have kavan over here that you have chosen us and you have given us the Torah. And what it says afterwards? The Keraftanu, right? Afterwards, go Keraftanu. The Keraftanu Malkeinu. Keraftanu, you have brought us close. Keraftanu Malkina, our king has brought us close. The Shimcha Gadol, to his great name. So it's, when you say the Keraftanu, you have brought us close. You're supposed to think you have brought us close to Har Sinai. Then we say, "V'kertonu Malkina," our king brought us close to the Shimcha Gadol, to his great name. He brought us close to his great name. Hey, you're supposed to be thinking his great name. Hashem's name is not complete until we destroy Amalek. So it says in the Torah. The name of Hashem is not complete until Amalek is destroyed. Afterwards goes Ba'ava, with love, L'choidis L'cho, and then says to praise you. Here you're supposed to think, when you say to praise you, you're also supposed to be thinking to praise you. That the mouth is for praising Hashem, and not to speak Lashon Hara, not the way it was the story of Miriam, who spoke Lashon Hara against Moshe, that Moshe separated himself from his wife, and she was telling Lashon Hara to Aaron. So you're supposed to think that the mouth is to praise and not to speak Lashon Hara as it was in the story of Miriam. And to declare your oneness, and to love Hashem. Here you're supposed to think, and to love Hashem. And to love Hashem, and not the way it was by the sin of the egel, the golden calf. At that time, they were not in love with Hashem. And then comes Shema. But Shema, of course, Shema and Baruch Shem, you have to have kavanah over there. Very, very important to have kavanah. At least those 12 words. Stop whatever your mind is busy with and take a break and make sure you have kavanah for those two psukim, Shema and Baruch Shem. Shema, these are simple words, but at the last two words of Hashem Echad, besides the literal translation, Hashem is one, it says you should also be thinking about the word Echad. The word Echad has a ches and a dal. The ches corresponds to the 7 skies and the world. Ches. The dalet corresponds to what? Anyone? The four directions of the world. Very good. So you're supposed to think that the ches, that is the 7 skies and the earth and the dal and the 4 directions of the world, should all become nullified to the aleph, to the oneness of Hashem. That's what you're supposed to think at this point. Now, you don't necessarily have to be thinking it as you're saying it, because you can't necessarily stretch the dal too much. Some people, they go and they make the dal becomes like a segel. The dal has to be So even though you're supposed to stretch the dal, you have to be careful. The dalet shouldn't change from how it sounds. It shouldn't become a chad, chad. Then it sounds like it's a de. It's supposed to be a chad, not a chad, right? If you stretch it, you have to be careful. Sometimes you see people, the dal, you ever noticed it? Or no, you don't notice, you don't hear this so much. I'm sure you hear it. So it's a chad. It shouldn't be de. It should be when we talk about all these kavanas, if you can't necessarily have it as you're saying it, you could do it immediately afterwards. It could be a chad, and then you could finish whatever intentions we discussed. Could be done right after you finish saying it. So you do stretch physically a little bit also, but you can't always get in all the kavanas as you're saying it. And Baruch Shem V'Savad, also you have to have kavanah. You also have to think the meaning of the words Baruch Shem Kaveh, what I mean, blessed is the name, the honor of the kingdom forever. That's crucial. If you don't have that kavanah, you're not Yotze. Shema. You have to say Shema again. Okay? Okay, now you continue. Now, something interesting about the end of Shema. On your own, you may be aware, what do? Ani Hashem Elokeichem, Ani Hashem Elokeichem Emes, right? You finish Shema, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, Ani Hashem Elokeichem Emes. When you show, you could be Yotze with the Chazan. So you can finish Ani Hashem Elokeichem if you're in the show and you're in the right place. Ani Hashem Elokeichem Emes. And then, if you know, let's say, if you know you can hear the Chazan. Not always can you hear the Chazan. If you know you can hear the Chazan, so Ani Hashem Elokeichem Emes. And then you can hear from the Chazan Hashem Elokeichem Emes. And that's good enough. Now you can hear from the Chazan any time you're in Shema. So if you know you're going to hear the Chazan, and even if you're in the middle of Shema and you hear the Chazan, it's also good. It also counts. As long as you're in Shema, not before, not after. Sometimes I see people in Shul, they finish Shema, they're waiting for the Chazan, they have patience to wait. So they're going further, they're going ahead. Yeah, but they're supposed to hear, but they usually, because they're davening a minute, they're going to hear those 3 words from the Chazan. They can't get those 3 words if they're past Shema. The whole idea is that you're attaching those 3 words to Shema. If you're really past Shema, you can't attach it. But anywhere in Shema, you could hear, you stop and you hear from the Chazan.
Why do we say it twice?
The idea is there's 248 limbs in a person. So Shema is 245. So we want to get another 3 words corresponding to the 248 limbs of the person. That's the idea. So actually, this I actually heard years ago. I was a Bach in Yeshiva. Heard it from one of my chaverim I haven't seen for years. He told me that his father, in the early years of the Nesius, so the Bachrim, the Rebbe used to come out of his office and come to the maskiras to take off the letters that were there and come back to his office. That's all it was in the early years. So the Bachrim, those in the early years, we're talking about this must be in the 60s. Bachrim that was the accepted thing. The Rebbe, they could stop the Rebbe and ask him a question. So this Bachrim told me, his father asked the Rebbe the question, what's if you're middle of Shema and the Chazan says Hashem Elokeichem Emes? So the Rebbe said he should stop and listen to the Chazan and then continue. Okay, now, yeah, sure. There is such an Indian. I haven't looked into it recently, but I heard this. It seems there's something from the Rebbe that the Rebbe did it.
That's what I was taught, but before.
There is such a thing. I just haven't really looked into it thoroughly, but there is. It seems that this is a source for that to move your head in all directions. I think it comes from the Rebbe because the Rebbe did it, so people do it also. Bashma, by Echad, but I think it comes from the Rebbe. And I think so. I have to look. I'll look it up and I'll,
Are you supposed to kiss your by
Huh?
like go like this and then kiss it? I saw someone doing it. I was like, okay.
I mean, the Rebbe did it. The Rebbe did it maybe with his. I think the Rebbe did it. It's something with the Rebbe. I'm not.
But I think it has to do with the Shalrish Tefillin, right? It's not. Also,
That's with the Shalrish.
right,
That's something
also
else. Yeah.
It's just like, I think it's a Sephardic thing.
It's not with Shema.
I think it's also separate,
I think
like
it's
an
part of
Israeli
the-
Right,
restaurant.
it's not with Shema. It's with the tefillin, the kissing. Kissing the hand was with tefillin, because the Rebbe touched the tefillin, and then something else. Yeah, but not with Shema.
When you say Baruch Shem, are your eyes open? Are you
Closed. It's part of Shema.
That's what I was wondering. So basically,
Yeah.
you say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad.
It's part of
That's
Shema.
saying the
Yeah.
whole line with your
Yeah.
hands still covering.
Yeah, that's
So
how it should be.
There was a whole machlokes in a school because all the moros go like this, Baruch Shem.
Right.
So then the other moros like, no, you're supposed to keep it covered. So
That's how it's supposed to be.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, now during Shema, going back to Shema for a moment, and that is during Shema, you're not supposed to hint to anyone. Meaning, if you're in the middle of Shema and Yudavi and someone is like saying, you're not supposed to make any motions during Shema. If it's for a mitzvah, then starting from the second paragraph, you could make. If it's for a mitzvah and it's important, then you can make. Otherwise, let's just randomly motioning to a kid. You're not supposed to go. You're not supposed to make any motions during Shema. And Shmones also, you can't make any motions. You stand in front of Hashem. You're not supposed to make any motions. You're not allowed to.
Can you hold the baby?
So it says during Shmones, you're not supposed to be holding anything because it takes away your concentration. But if you're in that position that if you're not going to hold the baby, you'll have even less concentration, then you should hold the baby. So, right, exactly, right. Now, talking about standing, so now standing during Kaddish. Do you have to stand during Kaddish? You may have seen in some shuls, when it comes to Kaddish, everyone stands up. You ever see that? You ever have these Ashkenaz shuls and Kaddish, everyone stands up. Some of you may have seen it, yeah? There is such an opinion that says you have to stand up by Kaddish. The Alter Rebbe and Shulchan Aruch paskins, you don't have to stand up during Kaddish, but if you're anyway standing and the Chazan is about to start Kaddish, you should continue standing. Don't sit down as the Chazan is saying Kaddish and you're sitting down. So if you're in a standing position by the beginning of Kaddish, stay standing. Now, there's something that the Rebbe did that a lot of Chassidim follow is that the Rebbe used to get up Am Yishmei Rabba. Am Yishmei Rabba, the Rebbe used to stand up. Am Yishmei Rabba, Chama Yizbarech. You see a lot of people do that. That's what the Rebbe did. But you want to be careful, whoever's doing it, to make sure you're concentrating. Because I find a lot of times that if you are trying to get it in, like, basically, why is it called standing if you're sitting? We before discussed what's sitting, what's standing. Definition of standing is when you're putting the pressure on your feet. So if you're sitting and you're going like this and you're putting pressure on your feet, that's called standing. But now you're trying to get in the whole thing while you're standing. So it could affect your concentration in saying the words because you're trying to get in the right? So now you can be compromising on the concentration of Am Yishmei Rabba. So something you should keep in mind. You want to stand and do what the Rebbe did, but don't compromise on the concentration. You're saying Amin Yishmei Rabba. You have to think Amin. It's true that may the name of Hashem be blessed forever and ever. You have to think what you're saying. But if you're just trying to get it in quickly, so then you're losing out.
So even if so basically, if that's the main minyan, and you're there, but you're not standing, you don't have to duck the stand for Kaddish.
Even if you're in that minyan.
Even if you're in that minyan.
Even if that's your minyan, we're not obligated to stand up for Kaddish. We're saying, but what the Rebbe used to do is, the Rebbe used to get up just, the opinion that says stand for the whole Kaddish. The Rebbe used to get up Amin Yishmei Rabba. That's why the Chassidim do that.
Then sit back down, or stand?
No, you sit back down. Yeah, Amin Yishmei Rabba, that's over, yeah, that's it.
I heard there's a davening after the Kaddish that's standing. You should just like stand already and stay standing for later.
If there's a davening, what did you say? There's a davening after Kaddish?
No, the next tefillah, like the next paragraph or something that's supposed to be standing. You just stand up and then just stay. But I don't know.
I'm not sure what you mean. If there's a davening,
meaning, for example,
I'm not sure what you mean. You're davening with them.
Yeah, let's say that before Ba'ibin Tzaya, there's
Yeah.
Kaddish.
Is a Kaddish
So
there?
just stand up and then just stay standing for reasons. I don't know. Like,
Right. Well, it just makes sense. It's Kaddish. Let's say he's standing for Kaddish. Now they're opening up their own Kaddish. So you usually on Kaddish people stand up. See if you've been so you might as well just continue standing. It makes sense to continue standing.
no, but to start stand or just stand by the entire.
Are you saying you heard you should start standing from before, from the Kaddish before? No. Why? You don't have to. No. Even Ibn Soya, there's no absolute obligation to stand when they open their Kaddish unless you see the Sefer Torah inside. But usually, Ibn Soya, the way you say Ibn Soya is standing. But in terms of obligation, do you have to stand when the Kaddish is open? A lot of times, you open our Kaddish for other reasons, like Shoshanim Kippur. They now open up their Kaddish and people say different things. People stand up. You don't have to stand up. Only if you see the Sefer Torah, even then, there are some opinions that say you should stand. Not everyone agrees. So it's not like the Kaddish being open in itself, there's not necessarily an obligation to stand. But generally, people stand up because they're saying Ibn Soya, and that's how Ibn Soya is done. Ibn Soya is done standing. The Kaddish, so people, but there's no absolute obligation in terms of just on Kaddish being open. Oh, the Kaddish is open. Okay, you don't even see the Sefer Torah, but on Kaddish is open. You have to stand up. It doesn't work like that. It's not automatic obligation. Yeah.
While we're on the topic of standing, do you have to stand during Kriyas Torah?
There is such an opinion, and the Rebbe was very careful to stand by Kriyas Torah, not downstairs, because over there the bima was a separate place, and the Rebbe was in a separate place. But when the Rebbe heard Kriyas Torah upstairs, when there was no separate elevated bima, the Rebbe was not elevated, the Rebbe would stand. It's not halacha, but it's brought that it's preferable to stand during Kriyas Torah. But that's not shaykh for the women, because it's not for the men, because in the same room. Women are in a different room, so it's not shaykh to say that for women they need to stand. Just like the Rebbe didn't stand in later years when they had the bima, because the Rebbe was not in the same place. Now, the someone davening shmones. Let's say someone is davening ma'ariv now here, and now you come to the room. Very nice. Your friend is davening shmones, very nice, and you sit down next to her, and you're reading something. You're not allowed to sit down next to someone who's davening shmones. You have to be 6 feet away because there's the shchinas around the person who's davening. So you're not allowed to sit down next to a person who's davening Shemini Esrei within 6 feet. 6 feet?
No, I can't imagine.
Six footsteps, yeah, 6 footsteps.
I daven in my break and there's
Yeah.
kids around. Like they're all how much like close.
Okay, kids are kids, but I'm saying if you see someone davening Shemini Esrei, you're not to sit down next to them. Now, if you are davening Shemini Esrei,
Is it different with the people? I'm thinking still someone around.
Right.
Like today, so one of the kids just went in front of me, and mom was in front of a pole, but she came between me and the pole.
okay, but what kids do is a different story. And also, you're not supposed to walk in front of someone who's davening. Someone's davening, you're not supposed to walk in front of them. Right.
I don't think if you're the one dominating, there's nothing you can do about it.
I know.
Right.
It's on the other person.
Now-
It's on the other person.
Now, if you're already sitting, what's if you're sitting and someone comes next to you and starts to daven Shemini Esrei? Do you have to get up? You were sitting there before, and now they sat down next to you. You have to get up. Now you don't. Now it depends. In the house, no. In the shul, yes, because the shul is a place for davening.
But how is it practical, let's say in 770, like a special...
It's not. Forget it. We're not, if you can't.
Like,
No, one second. If you are saying words of Kedusha, some words of Torah, of Tefillah, then there's no problem. It's only if you're not verbalizing. Even if you're studying, if you're verbalizing, there's no problem. Because you're also saying, you're saying words too. But if you're not verbalizing, unless you're studying, but you're not verbalizing, that's when we're discussing, or you're not doing anything. But if you're davening, you're verbalizing the tefillah, then the whole thing is not shaykh. Then there's no problem. By the way, there's a story, interesting story with my father, with my Zayda, my father's father. Father's father was a Ger Chassid. And the whole story how my father ended up in Lubavitch, that's not for now. But so just bekitzer what's negate over here, and that is he came. Father's father came down. He used to come from time to time to visit my father. Many times he used to come without saying hello to him. He just used to come, open up, come to the Besmedish at Bedford open the door, look inside. He went just to see my father learning, and then he left. Didn't want to disturb my father from learning. Just wanted to see that he was learning. He was very happy to see him learning. Then he just left without saying hello to him. He used to do that last time. My father's father used to come visit my father in yeshiva without disturbing him. Just wanted to see that wanted to get the nachas that he's learning. Didn't want to disturb him from learning. So he opened the door, he looked inside, he sees he's learning, and he just left. He's traveled all the way from the Bronx so he could see my father learning. So anyway, so one of the stories, he came to 770, upstairs in 770, this was in the 60s. And I understand he must have been like 30 years older than the Rebbe. And it was the earliest Nusis. He didn't know who the Rebbe was. And he used to daven a very long Shemon Esrei. So he walked into 770 upstairs. The Rebbe used to daven upstairs. And he ended up standing very close to the Rebbe. He didn't realize he was standing, and he davened a very long Shemon Esrei. Usually after Kedusha, the Rebbe would sit down, and this time the Rebbe continued standing because he was davening Shemon Esrei. So later they told him he felt very bad. He didn't realize, he didn't chop that he's standing next to that. He would have known, he would have stood somewhere else. But yeah, that's the story. Okay, now we're going to discuss you're in Shul and you want to answer Amen and Kedusha in your middle of davening. You can interrupt, you can interrupt. What could you, what can't you? So, if you are in Psuki de Zimna is from Baruch Shamar until Yishtabach, and we're not discussing Baruch Shamar and Yishtabach now. Okay, we're just discussing between Baruch Shamar and Yishtabach. That's what we're discussing. Okay? Going to discuss between Baruch Shamar and Yishtabach. What could you answer for? So keep in mind, you're not in the middle of a bracha. These are psukim of Tilim, right? So, or Tanakh. So it's not as strict as the middle of a bracha. So over here, you're pretty flexible. You can almost answer everything. What can't you answer? So I'm going to tell you what you cannot answer. What you can't answer is for after Chatzi Kaddish. You can only answer the first half of Kaddish. That's it. That means first half of Kaddish. That means first Amin, second Amin, Amin Yishmin Abba, fourth Amin after Brichu, and then the fifth Amin, Damin and Ba'amavim Ramin. That's the only Amins you can answer in Psukkah de Zimra. After that, you can't answer.
So there, you just stay quiet.
You don't, right. I mean, you could continue. I don't know if you have to wait and stay the whole time. You could continue davening. By Kedusha, it says you should stop and listen. But Kaddish, it doesn't. No. After that, it's only a minute. That's why you don't answer. So you could just continue davening. You don't have to stop and wait. And then what else can? So I'm telling you now what you can't answer, because most of the things you could answer. Okay. So what else can't you answer? You cannot answer Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai. What else can't you answer? You don't want to take out the Sefer Torah, open up the Aron Kodesh and say V'hi b'tzayar v'yemesha, right? All those psukim, V'hi b'tzayar b'rich shmei, right? The whole thing. You can't say that. V'zayis Torah, so V'zayis Torah, you can't say that. So anything other than this, you could say. It's pretty much almost everything. Say the whole Maidim, the whole Kedusha. You can answer every Amin of the repetition. You could answer. Pretty much answer almost everything. Now, the only thing is, here's something interesting. And that is, if you stop in the middle of let's say you interrupt in the middle of a pasuk, right? You're saying a pasuk. No, you're saying the Veimach, whatever. Yimlech Hashem la'olam, right? In the middle of a pasuk. And now, could you interrupt in the middle of a pasuk? I mean, if you could finish the pasuk, finish the pasuk. But if you're going to interrupt in the middle of the pasuk, then what you should do is, the proper thing is, after you finish interrupting and answering what you're allowed to answer for, go back to the beginning of the pasuk. Get it? Because you sort of broke up the pasuk. So you're allowed, because we said you're allowed to answer these things, but you broke up the pasuk. So go back to the beginning of the pasuk. Okay? So this is almost everything you can answer during Pesukei Zimra, and whatever we discuss now is not including Baruch Shama and not including Yishtabach, because those are brachas. Those we have to explain separately. So this is after Baruch Shama until before Yishtabach. Yeah, understood? Okay.
Because
Yishtabach is a bracha. So bracha is in a different category. Like we're going to discuss Birchas Krishma, right? Now, yeah, understood? Got it? Okay. Basically, all those things they can't answer because they're not really obligatory. It's just custom. Baruch Shmei, and after Chatzi Kaddish and Ibn Seah. But anything else you can answer. Now we're going to discuss Birchas Krishma. So now we're discussing from after Yishtabach, yeah? Melech Yachid Chelam finishes Yishtabach. Then you start Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Chelam, Yoitzer Eid V'Eid Cheshach, right? Yeah? Then there's two blessings we say before the Shema. They're long brachas. First one is longer. It begins Yoitzer V'Eid Cheshach, ends with Yoitzer HaMeiris. Then the second bracha starts with Avas Oilam until Abech Mesra B'Ava. Yeah? Ring a bell, everything? After Shema, then... Yeah? Yeah. And then after Shema, there's another long bracha. It starts with Emes V'Yatzev. By the way, the word Emes is part of the bracha. People think Emes is part of Shema. We connect it. There's a reason why we want to connect it to, because the pasuk Hashem L'kim Emes, the Hashem is truth, so we connect it. But the bracha begins with the word Emes. So from Emes till Gal Yisrael is also another long bracha. Two brachas before, one bracha after. So now, because we're in a bracha, it's stricter to interrupt the middle of bracha. It's stricter than interrupting the middle of pasuk, of Pesukei Zimra, right? So here, most of the things you cannot interrupt. Now I'm going to tell you what you could interrupt for, because most of the things you can't interrupt. What could you interrupt for? So let's start with Kaddish. Anyone knows which things? From Kaddish you can answer Amin Yeshmei Rabba. I mean the whole thing. Hey Shmei Rabba Yisbarach. You can answer that. Yeah? And then there's one more Amin from Kaddish you can answer. And that is, after Amin Yeshmei Rabba Yisbarach comes the next Amin. The next Amin you can't answer. You cannot. That's after Brichu. Shmei Gutsha Brichu. You can't answer Amin. And the one afterwards you could answer. That's, if you count from the beginning, it's going to be the fifth Amin. So it's Amin Yeshmei Rabba, and then the fifth one from the beginning, or if you want to skip after Amin Yeshmei Rabba 1, and then the one following that, you can answer. Those are the two Amins from Kaddish you can answer. Got it? And then, what else could you answer? What Amins could you answer from the Amidah? After Kedusha, what comes after Kedusha? After Yimlich, Ata Kaddish, V'Shimcha Kaddish, right? Akela Kaddish. You can answer Amin. That's the only Amin from the Amidah. Now, there's actually another Amin.
Even in the middle of the whole.
No, you can answer any other Amin. No Amin. Just only Amin you can answer. After Akela Kaddish.
But in the middle of.
Middle of what?
The first bracha, let's say. It's Baruch,
Any.
Let's say V'chayes, Akela Kaddish, Amen. Continue, like.
You're in Shul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're saying if you're saying words from Birchas Krishma. So you're trying to say that in the middle of Birchas Krishma, you want to wait to go back to? I'm not sure what you're asking.
No, you say Amen. See this Akela Kaddish, I can say Amen when I'm where.
Now we're discussing Birchas Krishma. It means anywhere from after Yishtabach, you already started Yotzei V'Eid Cheshach until Gal Yisrael. There's going to be some exceptions to the rule. I'm going to show you. But generally, anywhere from Yotzei Eid until Gal Yisrael, and I'm going to show you soon a few exceptions to the rule where you can't. But generally speaking, during that place, you can answer for these things. Okay? Now, you can answer the Amin after Akela Kaddish. You can answer. That's only Amin. But there's actually another Amin. There's another bracha that you can answer Amen, but that bracha we don't say on Shabbos. The bracha of Shema Kileinu Shemei Tefillah we don't say on Shabbos. So during the week, if you're in Shul, you hear Shemei Tefillah, you can also answer that bracha also during Birchas Krishma. Okay. Now we have Baruch Hu. The Chan says Baruch Hashem Veirich, and it says Baruch Hashem Veirich Le'avad. Or those are called to the Torah. They say Baruch Hashem Veirich, and it says Baruch Hashem Veirich Le'avad. You could answer Baruch Hashem Veirich Le'avad. You could answer Amen after someone is called to the Torah and he says a bracha Baruch Atah Hashem Shebachavana Kamim Baruch Atah Hashem Seina Torah Shnesta Esemes. You could answer Amen. For those brachas, you can answer Amen. Not Baruch Hu Shmei. Amen. Not Baruch Hu Shmei. Yeah, no. But even a bracha that I can say can answer Amen, Baruch Hu Shmei still no. Because that's just cousin. It doesn't make the whole bracha like, yeah. Kedusha. What could you answer in Kedusha? 3 psukim only. Kaddish, 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 Hashem tzavayis v'lech leres kavedei. V'lech kavedei Hashem kaimer.
That's it, not the rest of the paragraph, just
No.
that one line?
Exactly what I'm saying. Yimlech Hashem le'olam le'kansan de'v'dei haluka. That's it. Nothing else. No Shema Yisrael, nothing. Just these 3 psukim. That's it. But then there's something else you could answer for. And there is thunder and lightning. The minute of Krishna, we hear thunder, you see lightning, you could say the bracha, because basically what's happening over here? Because Krishna, we're only allowing you for things that are obligatory, that are essential, that are crucial. You have an obligation. If you hear thunder, you're supposed to say a bracha. So it's obligatory. So therefore, we allow you and we encourage you in the middle of Birchas Krishma to stop and say a bracha on the thunder that you heard, on the lightning that you saw. I mean, you don't have to go looking at it and looking for lightning, but I'm saying if you see lightning, then you say the bracha for lightning during Birchas Krishma. Now, whatever I told you have Birchas Krishma, there are some exceptions to the rule within this rule. In other words, in Birchas Krishma, there's certain spots that are more serious and more strict than others. For example, Middle Shema. The first 12 words of Shema, we're supposed to have Kavanah. We discussed before, Shema Yisrael Hashem, Baruch Shem, those 2 psukim. You can't interrupt the middle of those 12 words. From Shema Yisrael to Leil Vod, you can't interrupt at all. Nothing. Unless you have to save someone's life. You can't interrupt. And also, if you say Baruch Atah Hashem, let's say right after Yishtabach, you say Baruch Atah Hashem Kechem Yosef V'Cheshach, right? Let's say Baruch Atah Hashem, and you didn't say Elokeinu yet. And now you hear Om Yeshua Rabba. Between Hashem and Elokeinu, you can't interrupt. Even after Elokeinu, even after Melech, even after Olam, you have to connect the brach a little bit. Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed be Hashem, King of the universe. That what? What are you blessing Hashem for? And if you have a chance to even say what you're blessing Hashem for, you didn't say anything. You're right. Amen. You're messing up the whole bracha. So over here, you can't interrupt at all until at least you say Yoitzer Oid. Say something. Yoitzer Oid V'Cheshach. Then you can interrupt. The same at the end of the bracha when it is Baruch Atah Hashem. Between Hashem and the end, you don't interrupt. It should be earlier. It's like whenever there's a short brach, like the brachas in the morning. You say, let's say you come to Shul, you say you're saying brachas, the morning brachas in Shul. You say Bekeach Ivrim, Mater Asurim, Zeika Kfufim, right? All those brachas. Those are called short brachas. There's no way, you're never allowed to interrupt them in all those brachas for anything, unless you have to save someone's life. Okay? You can't interrupt for anything. Because it's a short bracha, so if you say something in the middle, the whole bracha, there's nothing left of the bracha. Blessed be Hashem, the King of the... And then, when it's a long bracha, so you already said, blessed be Hashem, King, that you created light, created darkness, and it keeps on going, and now you interrupt. Okay, so fine. But if it's a short bracha, you can't interrupt at all.
What, between the brachas?
In the morning?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, between the brachas you can interrupt, yes. Yeah. Not most of them. Some of them, we said between Asher Yotzer and L'Kai Neshama, you shouldn't, because they're connected.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because L'Kai Neshama doesn't have the Baruch because it's connected to a brach that begins with Baruch, so you can't. But most of the brachas you could interrupt.
When do you say the wrong bracha? You catch yourself. What's the right way of handling that? You're about to say Hadama and something that's Ha'et. You're about to say or Cheshach, but meanwhile you realize, oh, shucks, I'm like, said the wrong thing.
Really a topic for itself. I mean, generally speaking, you could correct yourself. There are exceptions to the rule, but if you're talking about Adam and Eitz, you have to be very specific what you're asking, because not always Hadam and Eitz you could definitely correct yourself. But if you're going from Birchas Hanan to something else, not necessarily. So you have to be specific, and then I could either answer you or I could tell you I know what the question is to look into it, because it really depends.
From what I heard, it's like you say the wrong thing, you finish Baruch Shem
Right. If you say a bracha in vain, you say Baruch Shem Kosavad. In other words, if there's no way to correct the bracha, you say Baruch Shem Kosavad. But if there's a way to correct the bracha, you better off correcting the bracha. That's Baruch Shem, there's no option. Then it's a bracha. If you say Baruch Atah Hashem, you say L'Deinu Chukecha.
Any part of that.
But only Baruch Atah Hashem. But if you say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu, there's no L'Deinu Chukecha anymore. Then Baruch Hashem Elokeinu. Now, what are you doing? Which you have to finish the bracha. So it depends what you did. If you say Elokeinu, then there's no problem. You could start any bracha. If you say Elokeinu Melech Haolam and you said the wrong bracha, it depends what you said. Certain brachas you could correct, certain brachas you can't. It's not so simple. My food brachas, you could go from food to food, but other things, you have to tell me exactly what the case is, and then I could either answer you or tell you I'm going to look into it. It depends on what it is. Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're doing now, yeah.
If you're in the middle of davening Shemona Esrei, asking for a friend, well, let's say your kid, a toddler, falls down and they're crying and they got hurt. What can you do? What can you not do?
You're middle of Shemona Esrei.
Yeah, not like it's happened to me or anything, but you're in the middle of Shemona Esrei, the toddler's right next to you. Boom! They trip on something, they fall.
Let me ask you,
what happens now?
Yeah, but what would you like to do? You asked me a question like, what do you want to do that you want to know? Could I do that? What is it? You want to bend down and pick up?
Like grab him.
Bend down. So this halacha that if you're middle of Shemona Esrei and a sefer falls on the floor, so really it says you shouldn't bend down to pick it up. But it says if it's going to disturb your concentration, then when you finish the bracha, you can bend down and pick it up. So I would say finish the bracha and then bend down and pick up the child because you can't concentrate, right? You're just gonna rattle off the words and so.
So I was like, is it better to finish it off, or is it better to like
finish what? Shemona Esrei or the bracha?
Shemona Esrei. Like that's what in my mind I was like, I was stuck. I was like, do I rattle off the rest, finish it off 3 steps back and hug him? Or do I?
Oh, one second. Oh, you want to move from your place? That's what you're saying.
Well, it depends.
I'm not talking about moving up. I'm talking about just bending down.
So
if he cries,
from you comes to me, am I able to? I guess I finish the bracha and then I like hug him.
Why not? You're staying in your place.
Okay. And what if?
Yeah, I mean, generally you don't hug in Shemona Esrei, but in this case, the child is crying and the child needs your assistance, and you can't concentrate anyway. So you finish the bracha and then you give the child a hug, and the child calms down, you'll hopefully be able to concentrate. So you're better off this way than just not hugging the child and just rattling off Shemona Esrei.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
If you do have to move.
Yeah, if you do have to move.
If you have to move, it depends.
The kid is going out of the shul.
What does it mean you have?
Yeah.
Depends what you mean. What do you mean you have to move? Why do you have to move?
Let's
What's
say I'm taking care of my niece. She's like reading a book, whatever.
taking care of?
My niece.
Yeah. How old is she?
3.
And she's good.
She's like walking on my lap, and I just down with her, and she's like watching downstairs in front of me. But if she's, let's say, goes out of the place, and I can't see her anymore.
So she's not safe.
Exactly. Could be she's totally like walking around to the
I mean, safety comes before anything. I can't make that judgment for you. I mean, if you're concerned of her safety, then you just do whatever you need to do. There's no way for me to make.
You go find her.
Could you finish quickly Shmoneh Esrei? In that case, it would make sense to quickly finish Shmoneh Esrei, because to leave your place in Shmoneh Esrei is not done. So if you feel there's enough time for you to quickly finish Shmoneh Esrei and then run, it's like she's not going to explode the whole world in a second. So that would say finish Shmoneh Esrei quickly. You feel it's just dangerous for her to go into the street, so then there's no choice. You have to move from your place. Comes to safety, I can't make that decision. Now, I'm going to add one more thing. And the kind of said, when you finish during Shmoneh Esrei, you can't interrupt. But once you finish the brachas and you say Yil Amvachim Shalom Shalom, Yil Ratza Even Efi Yil Fnech Hashem Tzur V'Geili, and then comes the kind of said, right? The kind of said. And that segment, the kind of said, till you go back 3 steps, has the same din like Birchas Krishma. Whatever discussion Birchas Krishma, you can only answer for the crucial things. Applies also to the kind of said. All right, I didn't mention one more thing. Moedim.
Concentrate the relevance of the Thursday?
No. What I'm saying is, no. Talking about interrupting. We discussed that during Bichas Krishma, you're allowed to interrupt for specific things. So I'm saying, during a L'kai Netzor, the rules of interrupting is the same like Bichas Krishma. That only for these things. Amin Yishmanaba, Kaddish Barachim Leich, Amin after Kela Kaddish. Yeah? But there's one thing I didn't mention, that is Maidim. Could you answer Maidim Mil Bichas Krishma? Anyone else? Maidim.
Just the 3 words?
Very good. 3 words. Maidim and Achlach, that's it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Just 3 words. That's it.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
On behalf of all of us, we want to give a thank you. This
Oh.
is for your, wherever there's a magnet where you can say
Okay.
birthdays or somebody in your family
Thank
can
you.
enjoy.
Nice. Very nice.
Baruch Hashem. Thank you
Very
so
nice.
much.
Okay. Good fun. Shkoyach.